When an exotic beauty falls in love with a rising star, they're ready to take the world by storm.
They were very sexually involved together pretty much every day. They were inseparable.
But this blazing romance will crash and burn when police uncover a heinous crime.
All we could see was a big ball of flames in the shape of a car.
I popped the trunk, and I immediately went to my lieutenant and said, "We have a body in here."
Police hunt for a killer in an investigation that spans more than a decade.
I told him I'm not retiring until I close this case.
And a shocked community is left to wonder how passion and desire could ignite so much hate.
People were attracted to her, and either it was a positive attraction or it was a negative attraction. She became a lightning rod.
Everything has a burning point.
In the early morning hours of September 18, 2003, emergency service personnel in Chesapeake, Virginia, are busy preparing for one of the worst storms in history to hit the area.
We had a full-scale hurricane anticipating to make landfall directly on top of us.
We've been preparing all our citizens to be prepared to hunker down. The winds predictions were very, very high.
At approximately 5:30 a.m., just as the rain from Hurricane Isabel begins to fall, a call comes in to the Chesapeake Fire Department.
Hey, we just got a fire call.
A gentleman who just so happened to be walking his dog in the morning stumbled upon the fire and called the fire department.
Firefighters from Engine 9 are awakened by the tones that call them to action. They prepare to respond to a seemingly routine emergency in unlikely circumstances.
When I heard the call, I started laughing. I said, in all this rain, we have a grass fire?
We got our gear on, we got on the truck, and went to the scene looking for the grass fire.
But when responders arrive, they find themselves face to face with flames that are no laughing matter.
When we rounded the corner, all we could see was a big ball of flames in the shape of a car.
Firefighters work quickly to extinguish the blaze.
It had appeared that the car had been burning for quite some time. The tires were all burned off of it, the paint was all gone.
Once we extinguished the fire, we looked at the rear of the car and said, you know, we need to look and see what's in the trunk to make sure there's nothing left on fire there as well.
I popped the trunk and I seen this. It looked like a piece of foam on the back of the, like where the tail lights are.
They just thought it was the backing of the seat.
I took the Halligan bar, which is the tool that we use, and I jammed it down in there to kind of pry it away from the back of the car. And when I did that, a leg lifted up.
We got a body.
It completely caught me by surprise. And I immediately went to my lieutenant and said, "We have a body in here." And that kind of changed the whole ball game.
As for the identity of the victim, the burned wreckage yields few clues for now. But as investigators begin sifting through the ashes, they'll find a case swirling with secrets, double lives, and fiery love. And the person at the eye of the storm was a beautiful young woman named Maria Christopher.
Everyone was taken back. Everyone was thrown off. This was a major turn of events. This shocked a lot of people.
Morocco, a country in northern Africa, land of enchantment, mystery, and the birthplace of Maria Christopher. Born on July 11, 1982, Maria entered the world during uncertain times.
Morocco is where the Western Sahara War was taking place, and this was probably one of the harshest wars in Africa's history.
Under the fog of war, Maria formed an unbreakable bond with her adoptive mother, Tina Christopher.
Her family structure had not been stable throughout that time frame, and she had come to live with Tina, who became her mother when she was a young girl. Tina was very devoted to her, and she had a very close bond with Tina as her mother.
In 1994, the promise of a better life brought Tina and Maria to the United States. They settled just off the coast of Virginia in Chesapeake, a quiet bedroom community recommended by a friend of Tina's.
I have something for you, Maria.
Over the years, Tina's love and support helped Maria adjust to life in America.
When she came to America and lived with Tina, that became the first sense of stability I think we could see in her life.
In high school, Maria's attributes helped her stand out among classmates.
She was beautiful, just not physical beauty. She had inner beauty. She was popular.
She was very attractive. She was very intelligent.
As Maria approached her high school graduation, it seemed the only thing missing in her life was love, a fact not lost on the handsome Larry Thomas.
What are you girls doing out here? It's cold.
Just studying.
Okay. I think you might need a study partner.
That would be nice.
Larry was a big teddy bear. He was a sweet person, a genuine person.
In the months that followed, Larry and Maria's friendship grew until one thing inevitably led to another.
If you knew those two, then you knew that they were pretty much meant for each other.
So what do you want to do this weekend?
Whatever you have in mind.
I have some ideas.
This was someone who she could see herself having a future with.
He treated her like a queen.
Larry easily won the approval of Maria's mother, Tina.
Hey, Miss Christopher.
Hey, Larry. You gonna stay for dinner?
Yes, ma'am, I'm definitely staying.
While Tina was supportive of the relationship, she made sure Maria stayed focused on her goals.
Maria, you need to finish your homework first. I know, I will.
Her mother really was able to keep her grounded.
She was very proud of Maria when she graduated from high school.
But Maria was unsure of which direction to take her talents, and she made the decision to postpone college in order to explore her many interests.
I don't think she really had settled on where she wanted to go in life. She was interested in beauty. She also had a part-time job working at a long-term care facility.
Fresh out of high school, you want to experience the world, try new things, go new places, and have no regrets. When me and Maria got together, it was let our hair down and go out, dance, and have fun and party. Maria was wild. Maria was crazy, but in a good way.
But what would straying from a more traditional path mean for Maria's future with her boyfriend, Larry? Would their relationship be able to withstand her carefree lifestyle?
He loved her, but he loved her enough to let her go her own path and do what she wants to do.
Maria was enjoying life and had a world of opportunities in front of her.
What Maria and no one else knew was that a storm was gathering on the horizon, and it was about to make landfall.
We were all three looking at each other saying there's just no way that there's a human body in this trunk right now. We wanted to believe it was a mannequin. "21-year-old Virginia resident Maria Christopher and her boyfriend Larry Thomas had a passionate relationship that they hoped could stand the test of time. But on September 18, 2003, as the state braces for Hurricane Isabel, this story of young love may go up in smoke after first responders make a gruesome discovery.
They had a vehicle that was fully engulfed in flames. When they popped the trunk, they found a body.
We didn't know who the body was or how the person died.
It was burned beyond all recognition.
You're left with the questions of how could that have occurred in the middle of a hurricane that's a once-in-a-decade hurricane.
We were trying to find anything that would help us find out who this person was because the license plates were gone, the VIN numbers were gone.
Conditions at the crime scene continue to deteriorate.
The rain was just horrendous, so we had to come up with a plan. We can't process this scene here. It's too dangerous.
The entire vehicle was moved from that location to a forensic bay.
Once the vehicle is safely shielded from the elements, detectives and arson investigators continue to try to identify the victim.
Most people, either their faces are recognizable or somebody knows them or something like that, or they'll have some form of ID on them. But as opposed to a burned up body, there's nothing to identify them with.
I think we got something. Looks like it may have been a woman.
Police soon discovered that the body had been protecting another precious clue.
The way she was laying, she actually was laying on top of one of her hands, which was protected from the fire.
In this case, one of the hands was able to be fingerprinted.
The body is transported to the morgue, where investigators join the medical examiner for the autopsy.
Hey, detectives? Were we able to get a positive ID on the victim?
Yeah, actually, I got some solid prints off the right hand.
The body was identified as the 21-year-old Maria Christopher. She lived in the Western Branch area of the city.
Did you get a sweep of the lungs? Yeah, I mean, the lungs are actually clean.
I'm looking to see, do they have soot in their lungs, which she didn't. So that let me know that she was dead before the fire.
Everything indicated to us that she was deceased prior to being put in the trunk of the vehicle. Maria was a relatively small female, and the driver's seat in the car was pushed all the way back and leaned back to indicate that it was a rather tall person who drove the car to that location. So, we know she didn't drive herself there.
As for the cause of death, that too becomes tragically clear.
It was determined that she died from a single gunshot wound to the head.
Less than 24 hours after finding Maria dead, investigators have the terrible task of notifying her mother.
It's the most traumatic thing in the world that can happen to a parent or to a loved one. When we presented the bracelet, she was able to easily identify it as her daughter's bracelet.
Of course, Miss Christopher was devastated.
After giving Tina time to collect herself, detectives press forward.
When was the last time you saw your daughter?
It would have been yesterday.
The last day that Maria was seen was on September 17th.
And it didn't bother you that she didn't come home last night?
No, I just let her be an adult. I mean, she was always a good girl.
Miss Christopher didn't think anything about her daughter not being present because she's 21 years old.
If she wasn't spending the night at the house, she had a lot of friends.
Investigators press Maria's mother for more information about those closest to her daughter.
What were her romantic relationships that you know of? Who would you have thought did this?
She was seeing a young man named Larry Thomas. But I can't see him doing anything like this.
Police consider the possibilities. Had Maria been the victim of a random crime or something far more personal?
In this case, we certainly knew that Maria Christopher had died as a result of a single gunshot wound. Where that happened, under what circumstances, did not present themselves.
You had to have a burnt car and a body. So it's a little overkill. Most strangers, they're gonna kill you, dump you, and be done.
Again, ma'am, I'm sorry. I'll be in touch with you, okay?
Detectives' first priority is to talk to Maria's boyfriend, Larry Thomas. The next day, after receiving Larry's phone number from Tina, they contact him about coming down to the station.
He came in and talked to me about him and Maria's relationship. He was extremely close to her.
Where were you on the evening of September 17th?
Well, I drive trucks, so I had just gotten back in town that night, and I was looking for Maria.
As detectives continue to question Larry, they're in for a shock when he reveals an explosive secret.
Maria was a dancer, an exotic dancer, so I just figured that she was at the club.
According to Larry, Maria's profession was something she kept hidden from her family.
She told her mom that she worked at a hair salon.
Her mother was very religious in her views and in her ways and did not know she danced at all.
An exotic dancer? How did that make you feel?
I would try to protect her when I could, and I thought she'd be working that night. But when she wasn't there, I just, assumed that she had stayed at home with her mom because of the weather that was coming through.
Detectives know adult dance clubs can be a magnet for shady characters, drugs, and criminality. If what Larry says is true, this only widens their potential pool of suspects.
There was a strip club not far from where her body was found.
Detectives can't be certain whether or not Larry Thomas is telling them the truth. In order to find out, they'll need to further investigate his story.
My impression is he was madly in love with her. He loved her enough to where there was no doubt in my mind that he would kill for her.
Could Larry Thomas have snapped? For investigators, one crucial detail about this man doesn't squelch their concerns, but fuels flames of suspicion.
He, at the time, lived literally blocks from where Maria's body was found.
As the tides recede from Hurricane Isabel, authorities in Chesapeake, Virginia find themselves facing a confounding mystery. Who had murdered 21-year-old Maria Christopher and lit her car and body on fire?
I don't know how you can do that to another person.
So far, detectives have spent hours interviewing Maria's boyfriend, Larry Thomas, but he denies any wrongdoing.
He says he really loves her.
Still, the location of Maria's burned vehicle has given authorities pause.
He lives blocks from where the body's at.
Determined to ferret out the truth, investigators make their way to the gentleman's club where Maria allegedly worked.
I'd like to ask you a few questions.
It'll cost you a drink, sugar.
I need to know if you know who this is.
Why do you have a picture of Maria?
It becomes apparent to detectives that 21-year-old Maria Christopher had indeed been living a double life.
Maria kept her life as a dancer a secret.
Maria's mother really thought that her daughter was doing hair.
Maria did do hair, but Maria was a showstopper when she got on that stage.
Maria was a wild child. Being 21, you have the impulsive behaviors, the dangerous behaviors, the behaviors that make you question, why would they do that?
According to our coworker, Maria wanted to stop dancing, but the excitement that came with it was hard to resist.
It is very hard to get out of that life of dancing because you're so used to the fast money, the fast drinks.
Maria's coworker also informs detectives about the unique understanding Maria and Larry had in their relationship.
Larry was not the overpossessive and controlling type. He would come to the clubs while she was there and be there as her bodyguard. He loved watching her dance.
Police can't help but wonder if underneath this accepting veneer, Larry is hiding more sinister feelings.
Just seeing the person that he loved being out there and showing her body, he would have wrestled with feelings of jealousy, feelings of anger.
But as police learn more about their top suspect, they discover something else about the night investigators believe Maria first went missing.
Larry Thomas had an alibi.
Larry came to the club that night, the night of Maria's murder, and we were both looking for Maria.
He seemed concerned for Maria's welfare.
Yeah, for sure. He loved that girl.
What about the people that worked here?
I mean, people liked her. He did have a few issues.
Plenty females were jealous of her.
This is a very competitive field with these women. Maria was a very beautiful woman, and I can only imagine that she made a lot of money dancing, probably more than most of them.
In addition to a possible coworker feud, investigators know there's also another angle they have to consider.
Were there any patrons or people that showed an undue interest in her?
When you're in that life of dancing, you do meet a lot of men who may fantasize about you and be obsessed, and it's dangerous.
Maria's coworker describes an ugly incident between Maria and one of the club's patrons that occurred only days before she was killed.
She was known to carry a knife. She actually wound up stabbing a young man in the leg who was basically coming on to her and getting a little too aggressive.
She didn't take any crap from anyone.
Investigators can't help but wonder if this incident was somehow related to Maria's murder.
You know where I might be able to find this man?
Yeah, for sure. He's a regular, so we should have his membership info on file.
The following day, detectives bring Chad Robinson down to the station for questioning.
You know why you're here. Where were you on the evening of September 17th?
I was at the club.
Chad tells detectives that on the night in question, he was at a strip club not far from the one where Maria worked.
We're gonna check your alibi. You wait right here.
Police are able to quickly confirm his alibi with employees of the club.
We were able to establish that there was no connection between this guy and the homicide.
With Chad Robinson seemingly cleared of the crime, detectives consider Maria's feisty temperament and a new theory about her last night.
Being a dancer, you have to protect yourself.
There's a good chance that she may have injured that individual, stabbed him.
Police comb through all recent local hospital emergency room and medical facility admissions records.
Of course, it's a hurricane. What happens during a hurricane, people get injured. So every emergency room in this area was busy. We started getting the names of everybody who came into the hospital with maybe a laceration or puncture wound.
After scouring hundreds of records, looking for any possible leads, detectives come up empty-handed.
We were able to establish that nobody who went into any of those medical facilities around the time of the hurricane and the homicide had any connections with Miss Christopher at all.
The next morning, investigators decide to revisit a familiar face,
to see if he can provide them with any additional information.
Again, Larry, we want to thank you for coming out. We really appreciate your help. It seemed that you knew Maria better than most. Is there anyone else you think we should be checking out?
But the person Larry offers up is not a jealous coworker or vengeful patron. It's another man.
She was seeing this punk kid named Sean. And just something fishy about him.
He started pointing the finger at on-again, off-again boyfriend by the name of Sean Greer.
She was in a love triangle.
With a new name on an increasingly crowded landscape of potential suspects, detectives are even more uncertain about the events that could have led to Maria's murder.
She was moving fast, and she was living dangerously.
For the last 5 days, police in Virginia have been investigating the murder of 21-year-old Maria Christopher. They've learned that Maria had a wild streak, and they can't help but wonder if it may have cost her her life.
When you're out there in that life of dancing, it's very dangerous.
Investigators are continuing to explore any connections between Maria's death and the local strip club where she worked. But getting answers from her coworkers is proving to be difficult.
Excuse me. We're investigating the murder of Maria Christopher.
I knew that they were hiding stuff from me. They were very vague about questions that I would ask.
Was she in any kind of trouble?
It was just like they drew a blank. They didn't want to even give me their real names. They gave me their stage names.
Look, I have a lot of work to do. I don't know nothing about nothing.
This could mean that they just didn't want to get involved with the police, that they were involved themselves, or that they were just too afraid to say anything.
That made this whole thing seem that they were hiding stuff from me.
While police continue to keep an eye on the club, they begin pursuing claims from Maria's boyfriend, Larry Thomas, that Maria's other lover, Sean Greer, might have been involved in her murder.
Sean Greer was part of this very crowded landscape of people who had some connection to her life.
Investigators turn to one of Maria's closest girlfriends to get a better understanding of Maria's complicated relationships.
Maria was fighting who to choose between Larry and Sean.
Larry was there for Maria. Maria wanted a sense of safety, a sense of security, and it appears that he provided that for her.
If Larry brought the stability to Maria's life, 27-year-old Sean Greer pumped the adrenaline into it.
At that age, everyone is attracted to a bad boy. Sean was a bad boy. Partying, gambling, sex, drugs. I mean, all the above, you name it. That was his life.
Sean Greer was an aspiring musical artist.
A rising star on the local hip-hop scene, Sean met Maria at a club where he performed.
She liked the music life, the studio life, the vamp life, where you never go to sleep, you party to the next day.
Friends say Maria was fascinated by Sean Greer.
Sean was exciting. He was in the local hip-hop music scene. He was on stage. He had an entourage of friends.
It was clear that they didn't have a classic dating relationship.
What Maria and Sean had was more of a lustful, passionate relationship.
According to Maria's friend, not everyone approved of her and Sean's unconventional romance.
By all accounts, Maria's friends didn't think it was something that was good for her.
Every time me and Maria spoke about Sean, it was always her crying or her upset and some altercation or drama.
But where did Maria's longtime boyfriend Larry fit into this romantic two-step? Jenna tells detectives that Maria had been completely upfront with him regarding her relationship with Sean.
Larry was more so taken back than jealous. Meaning, like, why him? Why Sean? And you have me.
Larry may have wanted to walk away, but his love for Maria made him stay. And when two people are in love, they can go through the test of time and still be accepting of one another.
After learning about the details of Maria's love affair with Sean Greer, investigators need to get his side of the story. In an attempt to track him down, detectives inquire about Sean's employment.
He did work at Hot Butter Studio, which was a recording studio.
On September 25th, investigators pay a visit to Hot Butter's studio in the nearby city of Norfolk. Hoping to find Sean and ask him some questions, they're met by someone else instead.
They talked to the owner of it, a Mr. Jenkins.
We need to talk to you about one of your employees, Sean Greer.
Sure, what's going on?
Well, do you know if he was in a relationship with a woman named Maria Christopher?
Well, Sean has quite a few ladies around. Oh, yeah, I remember her.
They would have their girlfriends when they would have girls on the side, and that's where the girls on the side would come see him at the studio.
Investigators ask Mr. Jenkins what he remembers about September 17th.
But we closed early that day because of Isabel coming in. Me and 2 employees, we locked up, set the alarms, and we were out by around 3 p.m.
Was one of those employees Sean Greer?
No, but he was back here at some point. He lost power in his place and decided to stay at the apartment upstairs.
While listening to Mr. Jenkins discuss the events that took place at the studio on September 17th, police can't help but notice that the space is under construction.
All the carpet's been ripped out. Studio has been completely repainted.
Detectives inquire about the repairs.
You're doing a lot of renovations.
Oh, no, that was damage from the storm, and thankfully Sean was here. He cleaned up, pulled carpet up, and painted.
When they initially received information that the carpet was taken out of Hot Butters, it perhaps was not completely unusual given the fact that that was occurring in a lot of residences in the Ocean View area of the city of Norfolk.
That was probably the worst hurricane that's hit this area since I've been alive.
After leaving Hot Butters, investigators track down Sean Greer at his home and bring him in for questioning.
Where were you on the night of September 17th?
I was with my girl, Tamika, at Virginia Beach. We have kids together.
But you do know Maria Christopher, though, right?
Yeah. She and I, we had our thing. And she was pretty hard to resist.
Did you see her at all that night?
She called me and she said that she wanted to meet me. I was with my girl, Tamika.
Sean didn't deny having a sexual relationship with Maria, but he was adamant that he was not with her on September 17th.
He denied he was ever in the city of Chesapeake.
The impression he gave is that he was playing Maria. It didn't seem like Sean had any motivation to kill her.
Investigators are about to let Sean go when they notice something suspicious.
He had burn marks on his hands.
Sean, where'd you get those burns?
Cooking. And you know how sometimes you use the fryer, grease jumps out, burns your hands.
Police don't have enough to hold him, but they know there's more than meets the eye to Sean Greer. As police begin to unravel this tightly wound fabric of secrets, they'll come face to face with yet another roadblock, leaving them with more questions than answers.
I started discovering that he was lying to me.
There's a code among criminals. They're not going to roll on each other.
September 25th, 2003. It's been 1 week since Maria Christopher was found brutally murdered.
The police were trying to move forward and try to fill in the gap as to what happened between that afternoon of September 17th and when she was found.
But investigators aren't able to ascertain the timeline of her final hours with any degree of certainty.
Maria always had a lot of stuff going on.
Her spontaneity made the investigation even more difficult because she didn't follow a set schedule.
However, police have a new lead. After paying a visit to local recording studio Hot Butters, they can't help but wonder if the key to unlocking the mystery behind Maria's final hours is hiding somewhere behind the studio's recent renovations.
The carpet's ripped up in the hallway, but there was no indication that there was a roof leak. So how did the carpet get messed up? The hallway wasn't repainted, just the studio. And how did just the studio part get messed up? What Mr. Greer had told the owner of the business did not make sense.
When police execute a search warrant on Hot Butters, they begin looking where the hallway carpeting has been removed.
Where the carpet had met the linoleum, there was this real dark line that was running along that linoleum strip right underneath the little metal strip.
They had applied luminol and they had received a reaction. They had a strong suspicion that something had occurred there.
So we took the metal strip, we cut a piece of that linoleum up and took it and sent it all off for testing. We find an area of drywall that was repaired. So we cut out that piece of drywall, went into the wall to see if we could find a bullet. We were unable to find one, but we had this hole that was in the wall that apparently was not there before.
Before leaving, investigators look in the dumpster out back.
We also found in a dumpster behind the business a pillow that appeared to have high-impact blood spatter.
On September 29th, CSI submit their findings from the search warrant to the Virginia Department of Forensic Science. It will take months for the evidence to be processed, but police are feeling confident.
Things were starting to look like this might be our place.
And all evidence seems to point to Maria's lover, Sean Greer, as a person of interest. Investigators bring in Sean's girlfriend, Tamika Sands, to see if there's any truth to his alibi.
So, Miss Sands, I brought you here today so you can tell me where you think Sean Greer was on the evening of September 17th.
Tamika tells detectives she and Sean were at home and didn't leave for a couple of days. Detectives can't help but question Tamika's veracity. Hot Butta's employees put Sean inside the studio at some point between September 17th and September 19th.
We confront her about it. She maintains the same stories.
I don't care what anyone's telling you. I'm telling you he was with me.
Put a little pressure on her. I charge her with obstruction of justice.
Stand up. Expand your back.
She spends a few weeks in jail, and we go to circuit court. Unfortunately, the judge winds up dismissing her case.
Without the leverage they sought to extract the truth out of Tamika, police are left to wonder about why she seems to be covering for Sean.
It could be that Sean is covering for Tamika and not the other way around. Tamika might have learned about Sean and Maria's relationship and snapped.
It's definitely possible that Tamika, enraged, took the gun, shot Maria in the head.
At this point, they essentially said, let's get the cell phone records of anyone that might be involved in connection with Maria. Not only Maria Christopher's own cell phone records so that we can try to get a sense of where she physically went, but also other people, Sean Greer.
What the phone records show are illuminating, but not concrete, especially since police are employing 2003 technology.
The cell phone records at that point in time in 2003 were almost like a tease. They would get you to a certain point in the investigation, but they couldn't pinpoint a location of a particular phone.
Today, cell phones can be isolated to a particular tower, but at that time, analysts could only pinpoint them to a fairly wide geographic area.
In this case, Maria's phone clearly moved in a direction and had its last calls from an area that would have included Hot Butters, but it was not so discriminating that you could conclude it was Hot Butters. In a similar fashion, Sean Greer's phone, even though they had records and information that would seem to indicate that his phone had been in a position where it had moved from Norfolk towards Chesapeake, they didn't have any independent evidence that could put him at the scene where Maria's body was found, or any witnesses that could show him taking her to Chesapeake.
Months go by without any further developments in the case.
There were not quick, easy forensic answers to a lot of the questions in the case.
But on January 5th, 2004, more than 3 months after investigators searched Hot Butta's, detectives received game-changing results back from the forensics lab.
We found her blood DNA on that thin black line on that linoleum. It's a significant amount of blood.
The DNA evidence is a boon for detectives. They now think they know where Maria was killed. However, they still have no concrete evidence connecting anyone to her death.
Other employees of Hot Butters had keys and had access to the location. And while law enforcement did not think they had any involvement with Maria, it was clear that law enforcement was perhaps not getting the full answer from a lot of these individuals as to what they knew.
As for who committed the crime, Sean and Tamika remain at the top of their suspect list.
The frustration in this case was, unfortunately, there was not enough clarity for law enforcement to take out charges.
Police continue speaking to anyone and everyone who was connected to Maria's life. They hope that it will lead to a much-needed break in the case.
There were rumors circulating everywhere. We started actually getting information that Maria had maybe been running some guns.
The people that she was hanging around with certainly were involved in gun running.
We got information that it was possible that she was setting people up to be robbed.
As investigators follow up on these rumors, the case only grows colder. Still heartbroken by her daughter's death, Maria's mother, Tina, had moved back to Morocco.
Her mother would call and ask, have you got anything? Have you heard anything? I said, no. It became frustrating to me. This person has got to come off the street.
But weeks turned to months, and months turned to years.
The case, as it reached into 2005 and 2006, was essentially at a standstill.
But the fight to put Maria's killer behind bars wasn't over yet.
In March of 2012, the Norfolk Police Department was able to get a grant to start an actual cold case unit, and I joined them.
2 years later, in 2014, the cold case unit officially reopens Maria Christopher's murder investigation. With Detective Victor Powell's undivided attention on the case, he takes advantage of additional investigative resources now at his disposal.
The difference between 2003 and 2014 is we now had the ability to break down if a cell phone call went off a particular tower.
Police submit Sean Greer's cell phone records to the FBI Cellular Analysis Team to reevaluate what was inconclusive evidence a decade prior.
The tracking of Mr. Greer's cell phone showed that he was at the Hot Butters, traveling to Chesapeake, and it shows him talking, going from tower to tower. He gets over to where the body was found, he's talking. We got a good case now, we know that he was in the area.
After all these years, did police finally have the evidence they needed in order to bring charges against Sean Greer in the death of Maria Christopher?
It's damning, but for beyond a reasonable doubt, not quite there.
Much of this was just a shot in the dark.
For over a decade, Maria Christopher's murder investigation languished in Southeast Virginia. But in 2014, a cold case unit decided to take another look at this infamous crime, and it soon hit pay dirt.
The advances in technology from 2003 were critical in this case. Now, investigators knew that Maria's lover, Sean Greer, had not only been at his recording studio the night of the murder, but had also been at the location where her body was found.
Investigators are more confident than ever that Sean is their man. But the question now is, where is he?
We learned that Sean Greer had moved to North Carolina and had started yet another life.
Sean had undergone a dramatic transformation.
He had gone and taken up culinary school and involvement with the ministry and had repainted himself as a different type of person.
Furthermore, detectives learned that Sean had completely disconnected from former girlfriend Tamika Sands and the family they had together. In light of this development, detectives try reaching out to Tamika in hopes that she'll be more cooperative than she was in 2003. To their surprise, she willingly comes down to the station.
Okay, Tamika, you said you had some information for us.
Contrary to her previous statements, Tamika now says she can't vouch for Sean's whereabouts on the night of Maria's murder. She claims it's possible Sean could have left and come back while she was asleep.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell me?
Yeah, I think you should talk to our friend Leslie. She was our roommate at the time.
Yeah, we'll follow up on that. Thanks again for the call and for coming in. Here, I'll walk you out.
Investigators decide to follow up on Tamika's suggestion to contact former roommate Leslie Reed.
Your friend Tamika said that you saw Sean doing some odd things during Hurricane Isabel.
Yeah, I mean, it was in the middle of the storm. He was burning some stuff.
Burning stuff? Know what he was burning?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really strange, so I took a look in the burn barrel. There was some carpet and some floor tiles.
We now have somebody saying that the items missing from the store were in a burn barrel behind his house during the hurricane.
Slowly but surely, investigators are building their case against Sean Greer. Then in July of that year, Victor Powell and his team receive a surprising phone call.
Okay, thanks.
We learned from federal law enforcement that they had had involvement with an individual who had connections to Sean Greer.
Police learned that the name of the individual in question is Charles Sanderlin.
I wound up contacting him through his probation officer.
Incarcerated in another state on unrelated charges, Charles offers his eyewitness account of Sean Greer's actions on the night of Maria's death in exchange for a reduced sentence.
The night of Maria's homicide, he gets a phone call from Sean, all panicky, asking him to come and help him.
Whoa, what's going on?
And she's dead, man. She's dead.
So call the police. Call the police. I can't call the police, man. What you want me to do? I want you to help me, Charles. No, we're way past that, man. I'm out. Dude, I need your help. Man, we out. I need your help, man.
So Charles left and out of loyalty to Sean, kept his mouth shut.
He agreed that he would come testify to what he told those investigators, basically saying that for 11 years, what he saw that night has been eating at him and chewing away at him.
Thanks to Charles' cooperation, as well as the new evidence in authorities' possession, on January 21st, 2015, a Norfolk grand jury hands down a murder indictment against Sean Greer.
At that point in time, what we try to do is utilize all the law enforcement resources, such as fugitive task forces, to try to apprehend individuals quickly and in such a fashion that they don't necessarily perhaps see the justice system coming to their front door until they're at their front door. He was taken into custody in Littleton, North Carolina.
Vic called me and said, we got him. He's in custody.
As prosecutors prepare for trial, they connect with Maria's loved ones and learn about Tina Christopher's failing health.
Time and health concerns had started to present themselves for Tina Christopher, Maria's mother. What we wanted to give her was at least the ability to have closure that she would know in her lifetime Sean Greer was held accountable.
After this decade-long investigation, prosecutors present Sean Greer with a deal in order to fast-track the case.
Sean Greer pled guilty to second-degree murder and use of a firearm in November of 2015.
It was one of the most satisfying points of my career, hearing him say, I'm guilty.
While Sean Greer admits guilt, he tells the court an unusual story, that he and Maria had been playing a dangerous game on the night of her death.
Sean states that him and Maria were actually playing Russian roulette on the night in question. In this game, it's where you pick up a gun, put a bullet, spin the chamber, and take a shot at life.
He said that the two of them were essentially playing around with a handgun that he had picked up and pointed at his head and playfully squeezed the trigger and nothing happened, and then she had done the same thing. And at that point in time, Maria was shot and died as a result of her gunshot wound.
For those listening in the courtroom, Sean's statement sounds unbelievable.
You know, she's done some reckless things, but nothing of that nature. I can never see her doing anything like that. Maria loves her life.
I don't buy it. If it's an accident, there would have been ways for us to be able to say that's an accident. But the lengths that he went to cover it up, and for the years that he went to cover it up, says volumes to me.
Prosecutors theorize a much more likely scenario is that some sort of confrontation took place that night in the studio.
From our standpoint, some trigger had to occur in the room.
Why do you think you treat me this way, huh?
Like what?
Like I'm some other girl in your book? What do you think Tamika would do if I told her about what we've been doing?
Maria was not a shrinking violet by any accounts. She was someone who was fiery.
Oh, whoa, hey, you're not gonna tell Tamika nothing.
Oh, yeah? Watch me.
Unfortunately, all anyone could ever rely upon as to what happened at Hot Butters would have been something that Sean Greer would say. And from our standpoint, he was very much a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Only the two of them would ever know what happened, what made him feel the need. He had to pull the trigger. I have no clue. I wish I did.
Those answers may never be known. But what follows next at Sean's sentencing on February 5th, 2016, makes the years of turmoil and anguish all the more worthwhile.
He told the judge he wasn't a monster, but the judge says what you did was monstrous.
Sean Greer was sentenced to a total of 43 years.
I had so many emotions, you know, like anger, sadness, relief, and betrayal.
While justice is bittersweet,
Maria Christopher's loved ones will always wonder what could have become of this beautiful, vivacious young woman if passion hadn't led her into the wrong arms.
She had so much of life ahead of her. I don't know what direction she was going to take. Most of the dancers, they don't dance forever.
If Maria was here right now, I think she would be doing the hair, or she would be modeling. I know she would not still be in that path that she was in when she was living. Maria was smart. Maria was just young.